Hello everyone and welcome to a new video on my knitting channel, Nikitinaknits. My name is Evgeniya and this is a video part number 2 of Japanese and Korean knitting patterns available in English and for the purchase on Ravelry. These are designs that are in my wish list. Some of them are new and some of them are there for years. So they are kind of filtered through my heart. Also, there are going to be color work only, sweaters and cardigans, no accessories. Overall, color work is not something that I usually tend to knit. I prefer more minimalistic stockinette projects, but these specific items I would definitely knit. It's worth all of the effort and I would wear it both in the city and in the mountains when I go hiking. In the description box, there's going to be a Ravelry bundle where you can see all of the designs, whatever information you need regarding size ranges, positive ease, the measurements of finished garments, and overall pictures you can find in Ravelry. I will also mention that a lot of Japanese and Korean patterns, they have their own knitting community on Instagram, and there is another actually knitting community similar to Ravelry that they're using. So just want to point out that if you go on Ravelry and you see 0 projects made of this design or just a few, it doesn't mean that there are no projects made on this design. It's just that people who knit this, they're probably Korean and they are never on Ravelry. Alright, the first one is something that has been on my list for quite a while since it came out. I have no words to describe how much I'm excited about this cardigan. This is Amandier Cardigan. Amandier means almond in French. I don't know exactly what is her idea with the design. Does she mean that this color work represents little almonds? Or maybe she had something else in mind. The designer's Ravelry name is ttoknit, and this is a bottom-up construction. I will explain right now how it's knit, and before I do that, let's come into the yarn. So the yarn is fingering, it's knit on 3.5mm needles, and for the ribbing you use 2.75. The recommended yarn is Soumine knit rusk, which I imagine is a Korean yarn, which is a 100% Shetland wool, and that is 225 meters per 50 grams. The yarn that I would use, and that is on my mind for quite a lot of time, is BC Garn Shetland Gods. It's not a Shetland wool, but is extremely close to Shetland qualities, which means that it blends in very well together, that is very durable, and this one is not even too rustic as they claim on the website. They say that GOTS certification is not something available right now with Shetland wool yet. I don't know exactly what GOTS certification means. I imagine some standards on yarn production or the way you treat the sheeps and so on. So BC Garn is quite responsible and they produce incredible quality yarns for quite great prices, and this specific yarn is available in 70 colors. You imagine that. So you for sure will find either you want to repeat the colors that she's used in her design or you want to make your own. There's plenty of freedom to be creative, and yeah, this is something I really want to knit. So regarding the construction, this is a bottom-up construction, but believe me, it makes sense. A lot of designs are bottom-up, not just because designer really wanted to have some fun, but because it's necessary to achieve a great fit. And I'm willing to trust the designer in terms of the length and do it, or even adjust it, but do it bottom-up as she intended to do. You start flat, I imagine, with the ribbing, and then you knit in the round until the armholes, and then you add sticks. That's also a sticked pattern where you have to actually cut the fabric. If you know Fair Isle technique, you know what I mean. And then you keep knitting on towards the shoulders, and then the shoulders are shaped with a shoulders, and I imagine the plank is connected in the back. The plank, I mean the bottom band of the cardigan. The sleeves are also knitted from the bottom in the round, and then you seam them with a mattress stitch towards the body. The bottom band is kind of a folded over bottom band, which I never did before, and that looks incredibly neat and beautiful on this cardigan. So the pattern is quite complex and a lot of things are going on, but if you did have some experience with Fair Isle, or you did even color work with fingering weight, you may be already ready for this project. And the way she describes the pattern on Ravelry already makes me trust this designer, because everything is so clear with all of the numbers, all of the measurements, great yarns, alternatives, and so on. So I'm excited to knit this, and I just don't know when, because there's so many great things to knit. Alright, for the next one, I already have the pattern for on my hands, so I just need to cast on, but I don't know when. This is a blossom vest by Soumine Kim, or Knits pour moi on Instagram. This is all over colorwork vest that is knitted bottom up and also sticked, the same as in the previous pattern. So you have an interesting detail here that the bottom ribbing and the armholes are knitted 1x1 stitch, and the bottom band is knitted in double knitting all the way through the whole thing. And I find it so professional looking and so, I would say, store-bought. So first let's speak about the yarn and then I'll jump into construction. The yarn is a collaboration with this designer, but in this specific case I would love to try this yarn. It's local French, very special farm, and their yarns are also very special to me because of how much they take care of their production and how they mix their yarns in order to achieve the best feel and the most amazing outcome. Is Boucle Lane Wison fingering, which is 75% wool and 25% merino. But I actually went forward and checked exactly what type of wool they said in those 75%, and it's actually different mixes of different breeds of sheep, and the main amount of breed that was used to produce this yarn was raised on the most western French island. The name of the island is Wison, and that's why it's called Boucle Lane Wison fingering. And the description says that it's not itchy towards the skin, which is always a big plus, at least for me. Before I start about the construction, I would love to say that this designer is a very great one. I would always trust her. And for this pattern, she says she includes some video instruction for the complicated moments, which could be useful for people like me, for example, who never tried sticking before. I'll remind that sticking is actually cutting through the fabric in order to not knit colorwork flat, but knit it in the round. So the way you knit the vest, you start in the bottom with the ribbing and you knit all the way in the round, adding the sticks to the middle and then adding the sticks to the armholes. At the top, she doesn't mention exactly what is happening. I imagine there is some shaping because when you look at the back of the vest, there is kind of a neck depth. I imagine that would require some shaping, or maybe you just cut through it. I have no idea, which is very interesting. What I also like about the construction is that you have an armhole shaping as well. So it's not just like straight vest, you know, that is actually popular in some of the Japanese and Korean vests. But this one actually has some shaping, and the intended design is still a little bit oversized. Not too much, but it still has some positive ease, which is a perfect balance between everything as for me. So after you're done with the sticking and you finish the whole tube, you could say, you cut the sticks and then you knit separately the double knitted bottom band and you add the ribbing to the armholes. To be honest, I would knit specifically in this mint and white color, and I already looked at the possible colors for this yarn. They're not like a lot of colors like Jameson of Shetland, for example, would offer, which could be actually an alternative yarn, but it's enough colors to be satisfied with as for me. So maybe I would choose something there, but I still tend to use exactly same colors as she does. I want to also point out to the complexity of the colorwork motif. It looks very interesting and not usual to me. It's like shaded, and you want to see at this pattern and you want to be engaged trying to figure out how all of these motifs align with each other. So I believe it could be a very special piece in my wardrobe. The needle size that is used for the vest is 3.5, 3 and 2.5 millimeter needles, I imagine, to achieve the perfect gauge in specific regions. So it may take some time to knit, but we don't have the sleeves and it's actually a v-neck, so we have less fabric to knit, and it might be a faster project, let's say, than all over colorwork sweater. Alright, the next one is the most beautiful pastel style colorwork sweater that I've ever seen in my life. The designer is called ttoknit and the sweater is called Glint Sweater. So it's very interesting that the design combines a structure, which is these 3 purl rows, and the colorwork itself. Usually colorwork is knit in a very bright, vibrant colors, but in this case, she's really emphasizing the pastel colors, and the very, very gentle touch to this design is these beautiful pearl rows that from far away could look like these little fuzzy stripes, because these stripes are actually a little bit more voluminous than the actual fabric. And the colorwork motif itself contains very different symbols. Some of them are snowflakes, Some of them are Norwegian style colorwork elements. And yeah, just my applause to Korean designers. I have no words, it's so beautiful. Regarding the yarn, I googled what kind of yarn she's using. It's written in the pattern and it's actually a Korean yarn, so I was thinking what can I replace it with. So without much thinking, I decided that I might use Cascade 220 non-superwash, which is 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and that is going to be a bit more lightweight than if you would use some normal wool. The construction is again bottom up. There must be something about colorwork that a lot of designers keep choosing to knit it bottom up. I imagine it's easier to make the shaping correctly in order to achieve the great fit. So you start with the ribbing, you knit to the armholes, then you add sticks to the armholes, then you cut the fabric, you do the folded over neck edge. Actually, she also said that you add sticks to the neckline, so you also cut the neckline, and then you do the folded over neck finishing, and you knit sleeves bottom up, and then you seam them, I imagine with a mattress stitch, towards the body. It's not so overstimulating, but it's still very engaging to look at and appreciate the work. And if you say that you knit it yourself, I imagine a lot of people would be shocked. If I knit this myself, I would be shocked. Alright, the next one is Amikomi Yoke Sweater by Noriko Ichikawa. I already plan to knit one of the designs from her, and if you want to know my other plans and specific design that I want to knit from her, check my autumn knitting plans on my channel. This specific colorwork sweater, I would say, could be an introduction into colorwork if you're new to this, like me, or maybe if you want to just relax your mind and still achieve a beautiful piece, completely professional. Noriko Ichikawa is the Japanese designer that is one of my favorite. Everything that she does, the approach towards her work is completely professional, incredibly clear edited, beautiful, pure English, and my applause again to the clarity and to the effort that she does for each of her designs. So this sweater is a very oversized, relaxed fit with a very thin fabric, and the recommended needle size is 3.5, 3.25 and 3 millimeter needles, which is knit with Le Petit lamb's wool from Bichet Bush. I would again use this yarn. By the way, Le Petit lamb's wool is a fingering weight, right? Or light fingering. So that's the orientation for you to find alternative yarns. To be honest, if I had a choice and availability to purchase La Manna Shetland, I would try that yarn. The reason to that is that I would need this design in exact same colors, maybe a little bit cooler for the light color, but I would do that. And La Manna Shetland doesn't have a lot of colors to choose from, but they're still very beautiful. So if I go for a very two-color simple colorwork design, La Manna Shetland could be a case because it's super lightweight, it's softer than normal Shetland wool, and it also blends quite well with each other. That achieves a very beautiful Shetland-like look. Regarding the construction, it's quite simple, and I think it could be a quite enjoyable knit. You start with the ribbing for the neck, and then you do an imitation of a welt stitch. This is what I did for one of my green sweaters, which is in a podcast number 1 actually. So the welt stitch is when you fold over the fabric in stockinit and then connect it again, and you have this like beautiful seam that actually pops out from your fabric. But this is the imitation of it. So what you do is that you do the ribbing 1 by 1 or 2 by 2. In this case I think it's 1 by 1, and then you double the stitches, you increase them double, and you knit the double knitting for a few rows, and then you decrease the stitches again. And when you decrease the stitches, you can do either purl row like is mentioned in her design. If you pay attention, you will see that there is a little purl row right under the ribbing of the neck, or you can do a knit row. This is what I did for my sweater in the podcast number 1, which is creating this very smooth, beautiful, a little bit popping bend of the neck. And then you just need colorwork yoke with increases, and then you split for sleeves, and you need the short rows to raise the back a little bit to achieve a great fit, and then you need the body all the way down, finish with the ribbing and do the sleeves. So quite simple, quite stress-free, no sticking, no flat colorwork knitting, no shaping with German short rows, except a very small part for the back, which is quite easy to make. And in the end is a minimalistic monochromic colorwork sweater, but it's still a little bit driving attention, but not overstimulating too much. The next pattern I would consider like a winter festive season or just winter season jacket because it's knit with a DK weight. It's quite an oversized jacket that has quite an expressive drop shoulder element and has a very interesting neckline that is quite popular in Korean knitting world. I imagine maybe it's something that goes from their traditional wear in Korea. To be honest, I'm not sure. If you're Korean and you know why this interesting necks are very popular in your country, let me know. That would be so interesting to know. But it's so cute. To be honest, I'm very hesitant what to do if I were to knit this garment, and I will be knitting this for sure because I'm in love with this. Either to use this neckline as the designer did, either to make a hood, that was one of my ideas, or just to make a normal 1x1 crew neck ribbing. I'm still undecided, so let me know what would be your preferences if you would knit Christstollen Cardigan. By the way, the pattern name is Christstollen Cardigan by Soumine Kim. Again, one of my favorite designers that I mentioned quite a lot before and in the video part number 1. So from far away, this colorwork motif could remind us of snowflakes, but also could remind us of those balls that we put on the Christmas tree. And overall feeling that I get from this design is Christmas, winter, and playing in the snow. And since it has quite a lot of room underneath, you can also put quite warm sweater. Let's say if you can just put a turtleneck sweater and then this jacket on top. And if you would knit it with a hood like I intended to knit, that would be even more appropriate jacket to play in the snow or play outside or just go for a walk in the forest in cold times. So the recommended yarn is, again, a collaboration with this designer with Biche Bush. She's using lamb's wool DK weight plus Le Gros Kid Silk from Biche Bush as well. That creates quite fluffy, quite warm and voluminous fabric. So she's knitting it on 4.5mm needles. And when I ask myself if I want to knit double-stranded colorwork, I would say no for this time of my knitting journey. I don't want even more challenge. But I would probably use a different yarn, which is also 100% lamb's wool. This is an English yarn produced in West Yorkshire, which is Lore by the Fiber Co. Since this design is using only 2 colors, it's not going to be so overwhelming to choose. And Lore is the yarn that is on my list to try, but for colorwork. But since it doesn't have so many yarn colors, I didn't really consider it as a main option. But again, for this design that is only 2 colors, is going to work amazing. By the way, Lore from Fiberco is very good as well for knitting structured knits. And I already have a few designs in mind that I want to knit with this yarn. Just give me 10 more hands and I'm going to knit all of them. Regarding the construction, is bottom-up construction with the sticks added, so very similar to a few previous designs. You start with the ribbing, you knit all the way in the round up, with the sticks added in the middle. Then you add sticks to the armholes, you finish the whole garment, you cut the armholes, you cut the front, and you work the neck separately, and then you sew everything with a mattress stitch. I don't know if the designer added the video instructions for this pattern, so I just hope for clear instructions, and I'm sure they are going to be. But maybe it's nice to try the blossom vest first, because they're for sure video instructions, and then we can move on with a bit more complicated work. I'm speaking about myself because I've never knit anything with Fair Isle technique before. Okay, the next one is 100% Christmas appropriate, and I think if you got inspired, it's already time to cast on right now because it's knit on very tiny needles, but again, it's completely timeless piece. I would knit it specifically in this color combination because it's crazy beautiful. Just look at the colorwork motif, how intricate, all of these crossroads, all of these interesting elements, how harmoniously they blend in each other. Okay, I'm so excited that I even forgot to mention the pattern name and the designer's name. This is designer Yuko Sakamoto. She is Japanese and her Ravelry catalog is called My Fair Isle Journey. I went to her catalog and so many beautiful Fair Isle projects. She is a true inspiration for me to really advance, get some patience, and knit quite a few pieces for my wardrobe, specifically for the hiking, which is a big part of my life as well. And the cardigan's name is Burra or Burra. I have no idea how to say it correctly. And the yarn that is recommended, actually 2 yarns, which I don't think they're held together. I think they're just both used in this pattern, but you knit with only 1 strand. So those 2 yarns are Jameson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight and Jameson's of Shetland Spindrift. And I think that was necessary, my assumption that she wanted to achieve this specific color combination, but I'm not sure. I've never tried anything from Jamieson of Shetland or Jamieson and Smith, so I'm really excited to do it. And I, as I already said, would just go for this exact color combination. So the construction is very similar to things that I mentioned before. You start bottom up, you add sticks in the middle of the cardigan, you work in the round all the way to the armholes, then you add sticks also to the arms, knit all the way up, you add sticks to the neck, then you cut everything and you pick up stitches for the sleeve, and I imagine you need them from up to the bottom. You pick up stitches for the neck, you knit it until desired length, and you pick up stitches for the bottom band. I'm so excited about this one. It's so cute, and these light color buttons that I added add even more freshness to this. And yeah, it could be perfect for a family dinner, for Christmas again, for anything, to be honest. So it's completely worth the effort. Also, the needle size, I forgot to mention, it's knit on 3.25 millimeter needles, and the yarn that I said before is both of them are fingering weights if you're looking to replace it with something. And last but for sure not least, this is one of my favorite sweaters. I know I say this for each one, but trust me, like this Camélia sweater, I for sure will knit. Is Camélia Sweater by Soumine Kim. This is a very simple construction and it looks quite complicated at the first look. So it's just the raglan with some neck shaping and everything is knit like a traditional raglan top-down construction that we want to knit when we want to relax our mind. I'm starting with the construction because I'm so excited about how could she make such a complicated look sweater knit so simple. It's insane. Applause. So you start from the top, knitting the neck, then you do some German short row shaping for the back to create this neck depth. It looks incredible. And then you increase with the raglans and you're already doing color work at the same time. There are quite a few Ravelry projects that are already done. And you can see for different sizes, the motif of the color works, these flowers, they kind of break. And at first, when I just saw this pattern first time, I thought, this is a bit weird, you know, the flowers are broken. But for real, if you just look at it and you blend the whole image, you don't pay attention to them. The color selection that I want to specifically choose for this design is pastel-like. I saw this picture on Instagram. I think it's one of the finished objects from her testers or just a random person who need this design. It's very gentle, light color sweater with blue flowers and with these little orange dots inside the flowers. I also have an idea to make it also in white color, but the flowers would be gray and the dots would be also like this dusty burnt orange color. I'm still undecided and I'm excited for both options, but to be honest, I lean more towards the option that you see now on the screen, which is this blue pastel-like colors. So the yarn is a sport weight yarn, which is also the collaboration with that local French yarn that I mentioned before from one of her designs. This is Boucle Lane Mérinos Angora sport weight. This is 90% softest merino and 10% Angora rabbit wool. I know a lot of people are not so fine with knitting with Angora yarns because a lot of times they're quite cruel towards the rabbits, and a lot of people just say, no, I will never knit with Angora anymore. But this specific Angora is made with the rabbits that were grown in France that follow all of the standards for Angora production. I already checked that out because I'm so strict about cruelty and animals should be treated correctly, and also people who work in the farms, like everything should be done in a good, correct way. So this Angora, and there's some French yarns that produce Angora, are also great. France is really good at that, and I would for sure knit with this yarn. So if you look at the finished fabric, you can see that this 10% Angora actually play a big role. They create this very gentle little fluff with long hairs, and they're not itchy at all. Angora is the softest fluffy yarn that exists, in my opinion, and it's not so likely to felt. The only downside of Angora is first the price. Second, cruelty-free, which I said again, like you need to really make sure you're buying yarn from a responsible farm. And third is that a lot of people get allergic or disturbed by the fluff that Angora can lose for quite a while. And it's recommended when you wash the garment with Angora, you just take a little brush and you kind of brush the garment to remove the excess hair. so that whatever is left is really sticked into the fabric and it's not sitting on your trousers and the dark couches and so on. But still, Angora is going to shed a little bit depending on the yarn, so we can't avoid that. But the tactile experience and the warmth is actually one of the warmest yarns that exist. It's on the level with those yarns that sustain very low temperatures. Yeah, not many things can compare with that. So Camélia Sweater by Soumine Kim, really simple raglan construction in this incredibly gentle, feminine colorwork motif, a little bit cropped, so if you want to make it longer, of course it's very possible because you're knitting top down. You need to account that you will need more yarn for sure. I don't know how much extra meterage this designer adds to the recommended yarn because I don't have much experience with this designer, but still, you can check Ravelry projects and see how much meterage they used for their projects and if they did make it longer or not. So with this beautiful note, I'm going to end this video. I want to thank you for watching, and I truly hope you got inspired for this winter colorwork season. As I mentioned before, I'm going to also make part 3 and part 4 of such videos, and the next video is going to include mostly cables and some of the minimalistic basic designs. I'm already excited to film that video as well. And also there are a few designers that are in the process of testing their patterns, and I'm just patiently waiting for them to be released. Thank you very much again for watching, and I hope to see you soon in my next video.